the first song I've learned to play on piano, and quite honestly, up until now, it's about the only one. But ironically, the moment we sat down to research why Dallas's Scottish Rite Hospital exists, we started hearing the familiar chords to heart and soul. And the more we heard people talk about how the hospital has touched, and in many cases saved their lives, the more appropriate the song became. Because unlike much of what modern medicine has become today, the success of Scottish Rite Hospital lies in its heart and its soul.
We're going to do this for the child, and if he needs it, you're going to get it. And they believed that. I mean, that was from the heart.
As it was throughout the rest of the nation, the heartbreaking polio epidemic of the 1920s was mowing down Dallas's children, robbing them of healthy futures, or too often, robbing them of their lives.
And there was no place for those kids to go. They didn't have much money, and they didn't have insurance.
They said, we're going to help these kids. And they went to W.B. Carroll, the only orthopedic surgeon in Dallas, and said, hey, Dr. Carroll, would you help us out? And Dr. Carroll didn't say, well, now, wait a minute, you know, how many of these kids have insurance covered by PPO, HMO, or whatever? He said, yeah, bring them into my clinic, and I'll take care of them. Now, that's pure charity. I mean, there's no question. I mean, it's not, you don't have to do an analysis to say, hey, what are they doing? It's a group of Masons, out of the goodness of heart, not expecting to get anything out of it. They were going to help the kids. And Dr. Carroll said yes. And that was in 21. Today, same philosophy. You got a group of kids that need help, and the Masons help get them in. The doctors take care of them. And man, that is pure. It's the purest charity in the world, and it's the purest practice of medicine in the world.
First seen at Scottish Rite in April with these films up here.
And it didn't take long before this ambitious little clinic that became Scottish Rite Hospital for Crippled Children began attracting the best of medicine's practitioners to come and solve unsolvable problems.
What? What is my name? My name is Dr. Wenger. What is your name?
My name is Dr. Wenger.
Your name is that also. Well, she's doing very well. This is the first time you've been up walking.
I thought this had potential to really be as good a place as any place in the country for doing children's orthopedics.
She's 6 years old, spinal bifida.
And she's had no surgery there, right?
No surgery there.
And then the kids came and came. Doctors couldn't cast fast enough. Texas parents carrying little hope and even less money migrated to Scottish Rite, often as their last resort.
Crutch, okay, step. Crutch, step.
With success measured one baby step at a time.
Step. Crutch, step.
The most gratifying thing in every case is if you can make the patient better. One thing we've always insisted on is having the absolute top quality of medical care in our field that's available anywhere in the world, and no compromise on that, and no compromise relative to who the patient is. It's really what the problem is, how can we best solve it, and we go all out that way for every patient.
But after almost a half-century of that all-out, no-compromise approach to free medical care, the hospital itself started gasping for air. It was choking on its own generosity. Too many kids, too few beds.
And they said, let's build a hospital for the future. Let's build a hospital for children. That's a wonderful place. And they did. And in the fall of '77, we moved in a building. It was a $30 million building, debt-free. Hi.
Hi,
how you doing?
Good.
My gosh, you got a load. They said, well, now will Scottish Rite Hospital survive in the environment and, you know, and all these things? And I said, well, the philosophy that we've had here, that the more you do for others, the more will come back to you, has gotten us through 2 world wars, it's got us through a depression and everything else. And I believe it will. And it's living proof here that we're doing the same thing today that we did in 1921. You help people and you're sincere in it, and you don't know when it's going to come back, but that reward will come back.
There's not another place in this whole world like Scottish Rite Hospital. Just to enter the doors, it gives a family hope.
This is, by the way, a bird.
Bill Carpenter paints with his imagination and his heart. Inching towards 80, his eyesight is nearly gone, but Bill's true vision, his artistry, is vibrant and clear. Bill Carpenter is used to obstacles. He faced his first one as a child.
It wasn't very good to start with, because you don't know what's wrong with you.
It didn't even have a name yet, but Bill's dad had one that still hurts.
My dad was the old-fashioned type and thought you either were smart or you're dumb. Well, there's no question in my case and what it was.
Dumb? No. Dyslexic? Yes. His mom steered him towards art, and that was all Bill needed.
It felt very satisfying. It felt like I was out of a box, and I belonged to the world. Gosh, I'm proud of you.
For 10 years, Bill has been giving back to the world, exposing fellow dyslexics at Scottish Rite Hospital to art, to free them from their prison.
What I'm trying to do is to open that door and to let these kids out. And people say, you want to make them all artists? I said, no. I want them to be creative.
I'm not quite sure. There's a toucan.
Garrett Van Allen's painting and his patients both matured under Bill, who volunteers as both an artistic and dyslexic mentor to many at the hospital.
I'd be doing great in like math, science, social studies, stuff like that. But then as soon as I hit spelling or something on the board or on the overhead or anything, I would just stop.
I'm proud of you. I'm proud of everything you do.
For young dyslexics, Bill's touch is more than artistic, it's therapeutic.
The children he is dealing with have already had some pain in their life. What he wants to make sure is that they don't drown in that pain.
You have to learn that this child is different. And I mean, they're not stupid, they're not brain damaged or anything. But you got to give them the opportunity to be able to be themselves. They're all kind of part of my family. And I don't know, it gets pretty emotional sometimes. So. But I feel like it's worthwhile.
Okay, Paige. Ready to get up there in 1 second.
Handling horses is in Paige Porterfield's blood. Her mom has bred and trained them for years, and Paige has been riding them for almost every one of her 23 years.
Paige was actually riding a horse before she could walk.
But Paige says her parents aren't the only ones who deserve credit for her success in the saddle and in life.
Scottish Rite has been there for me my whole life.
With help from Scottish Rite's special development experts, Paige's parents were sure their daughter would prove her first pediatricians wrong.
And the doctors said that she was delayed, and they thought that she had cerebral palsy and that she probably would never walk or talk, count to 10.
And battling the incurable movement disorder is almost always horrendously expensive. Money that, despite appearances, Paige's family did not have. Enter the Masons and Scottish Rite Hospital.
I honestly could not believe that they did not charge. I just kept on wanting to pay. I was like, nobody does not charge. There are no free lunches, I thought. And I just couldn't believe what a blessing it was.
Paige blossomed and began blazing impressive trails immediately.
My horse taught me how to walk, and it helped me to know how to function as a quote-unquote normal person. You can do anything you want if you just pick your mind to it and do it.
It was a struggle. There were a lot of struggles.
And I went from there to showing horses competitively in very large quarter horse shows with people with no disabilities, or as I say, inconveniences.
But Paige knew her frontier days were numbered. Her horizons stretched far beyond riding the North Texas prairie.
I hope to one day be a preschool teacher myself, and that will be in the near future. Okay.
Which requires one thing, a college degree for the girl who wasn't supposed to be able to count to 10.
Duck says, quack, quack. You say cat? Good girl.
She certainly had the will, but couldn't afford the collegiate bills. Once again, the Masons found the money and started a Scottish Rite college scholarship.
Her father had died when she was small, and it put me in a position of a relief to be able to help her realize her dream of going to that school.
When they gave me that money to go to college, it was showing me the faith that they had in me. Yeah!
And now it's time to give back, to show younger cerebral palsy patients what a modest Dallas hospital taught her, that anything is possible.
One. Just by motivation and being there, it really helps a child. They give a child hope that I've never seen before.
The amputations, the gangrene, I just had people that loved me, and it's really tough to fail in life when people love you. You know, the one thing that I learned was that life wasn't very fair. Nobody ever promises you a lot. I think the measure of our life often is the way we handle that suffering.
Tough lessons at any age, but Lyndon Olson found himself learning them on the fast track, actually even before he ever took his first step.
You can say kids made fun of me, and they did. And people stare, and they did. But that's a normal human reaction.
Do you think he walks better with one foot or the other?
Lyndon Olson was one of the unlucky 5,000 children born every year in this country with club feet. He dreamt of stealing bases, but he lived in twisted pain.
In the front yard of my house, I'd play baseball. I loved baseball.
Braces didn't work, nor did surgery. In fact, life-threatening complications erupted after the operation. He was rushed to Scottish Rite Hospital.
I didn't know what the next minute, much less what the next day would bring in my life.
We see it all the time. So the world is over with, I'm dead.
You know, back in those days, you were in the hospital by yourself, and parents weren't there. And
isolated and afraid. Why me?
I asked myself that a million times and didn't want to be there because of just the sheer aloneness.
1 minute, Lyndon Olson was still a boy. The next, a decision that would boot him into adulthood, a decision people still talk about today, 40 years later.
Be sure and ask him about the decision to amputate his feet.
And Dr. Carroll came into me one day and he said, "Lyndon, I need to talk to you." And there were probably 10 or 12 of us on the ward at the time.
And you're how old?
Oh, I'm 11, I guess. And so he said, let's you and I go back in the back and talk.
We can take and basically, you know, there's no other way to describe it. We can cut your feet off.
He said, we can save that leg, just like in an animated way, like I'm talking to you. And I said, really? And I was pretty excited. He said, yes, but he said, you'll never be able to use it. And so I said, will I be able to play baseball if you amputate it?
Only way might be to amputate your foot or feet. I don't know if he'd already had one amputee, ended up with both amputated, and you need to decide that.
And I said, well, what, have you talked to my parents? I mean, that's an 11-year-old's natural reaction. Well, Lyndon, this is your decision. Oh, man, I mean, you know, I'm 11 years old laying there. And I said, well, he said, why don't I give you about 15 minutes? And I'll be back. And I'm laying back here in this room. I remember it's brown, black marble. I'm by myself going, I was laying there going, oh man, what, I mean, this is above my pay grade. I mean, and so I lay there and cried a long time and thought about it. Came back in, he said, have you made up your mind? I said, no, sir, I haven't. I'm thinking about it.
Minutes later, a surgical suite was readied, and then a stranger appeared.
And I was on my way to surgery. I hadn't seen my parents. I was going down the hall. I'm Jim Cantrell. I have 2 artificial legs, and I'll come back and see you. I'm on my way to go play golf. Wow, man, how much information was that? In retrospect, not that it probably, you know, it changed a lot of things, but in my mind, the burden was on the side of accepting the amputation, as opposed to every time something went wrong in my life later on, if that man just hadn't have done that.
Tough love, Scottish Rite style.
Okay, we've amputated your legs. We're going to teach you how to walk so you can do good things.
Early successes in state politics were then equaled or surpassed on Wall Street. And now he's returned to his ancestral roots, Stockholm, Sweden. Where hard work and hard lessons are learned piece by piece.
Our guest of honor, the Ambassador of the United States, the Honorable Mr. Lyndon L. Olson, Jr.
And today, Ambassador Olson is so private about his artificial legs, many diplomats and even some of his staff don't know.
I don't perceive myself as Lyndon Olson, the amputee. I perceive myself as Lyndon Olson, who has been given gifts. You have strengths and you have weaknesses. I have 2 artificial legs. That's my strength.
Strength that began 40 some odd years ago at Scottish Rite Hospital for Children.
That hospital was as integral a part of my life as the kids on my street, North 27th Street, as my family, as the people around me who loved me and nurtured me at that crisis time in my life. And I love the hospital. And so until I die, I'll be paying back.
This is Heart and Soul.
Good shot, Dad. Right in front of it, Dad. Right in front of it? Yeah. Track to the right of it, I mean. It's to the right of the bunker.
Is it?
Yep. You'll be able to see it. This is good.
Yeah, that was a good shot.
Thank you.
Father and son, linked together by heritage, and now drawn even closer by the ancient game that has connected generations of dads and their boys.
Okay.
On the green.
Slow down.
On the green. Beautiful.
Something that we both enjoy to do and can both have fun doing it together. Dad, that was straight. That felt beautiful. Keep my head down, keep my eye on the ball.
But Philip Newberry needs a little more than that golfer's universal mantra to succeed on the links. Because 15 years ago, Philip came into this world without most of his arms and missing most of his legs, too. It didn't take long before he knew his would be a journey along a different path.
I kind of noticed it when sometimes we'd walk in somewhere and people start staring. Kind of, well, they're staring at me, but then I just grew to realize that I was a little different from them, and I would, just gonna have to accept that. So I decided I would, and I would make the most of it.
Getting it good and hot.
For generations now, technicians, artists really, Scottish Rite Hospital, have been shaping limbs and shaping lives.
People in the field tend to get into it because they like working with their hands. They like the fact that what they build, what they design, benefits someone else's life.
As sophisticated as these arms and legs and knees and hands and hips get, they're really just an assembly of nuts and bolts, wood and metal, hydraulics and hinges. But if you fit them together in just the right way and then fit them to the human body, you've got yourself a whole lot of very happy kids.
Works every time.
I've never heard him be negative or down about the fact that he's missing some of his arms and his legs at all. Well, Philip and most of the kids are pretty upbeat, and they want to be and are just like other kids.
This is a par 3, right?
You understand what it means when you just
don't swing hard.
Slow down and swing easy. We're real proud of him because his attitude and because he doesn't, you know, it would be easy to get down and to think he can't do anything, but he'll try anything. Good job.
Par.
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 Remarkable spirits and a remarkable hospital.
They care about how I feel. They want me to be happy.
My soul is at that hospital. My heart's at that hospital.
Scottish Rite does miracles.
This is Heart and Soul.